Denise, you want to pick up next?
Sure. I'm Denise Richa. I'm from the Office of University Advancement. I'm the Director of Events and Special Projects, and I am calling in from South Austin.
Anthony, where are you calling from?
Okay, I'm calling from San Antonio. I'm a member of Pax Christi San Antonio, and I see one of my fellow members there. She'll get to you soon enough. I'm a graduate of St. Edward's, class of 68, and I'm interested in many of the topics you have. I put out a little newsletter, and I put this event in it. And a friend of mine who's a pastor of a Black church in Nashville answered, said he very much enjoyed the article. I was kind of half expecting him to join us today, but it may not fit his schedule.
Great. Thank you. Glad to have you back, Anthony. Karen, you want to go next?
Yes, hi, I'm Karen Dix. I'm calling in from Pflugerville, and I work in the Office of University Advancement with Denise and the rest of the team.
Terrific. And I'm sorry I skipped over you, Karen Ball. Do you want to say where you are and say hi to everybody?
Well, hello, everybody. I'm one of the partners that Anthony just alluded to. I'm calling from the north side of San Antonio, Texas. I'm a member of Pax Christi in San Antonio. I'm a member of a Peace Center here in San Antonio. And I'm also organizing with the Poor People's Campaign in the state of Texas.
Wow, thank you. Thanks for joining us. And I see Brenda Stone in maybe your kitchen. It's hard to tell.
Hi, Jack. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Yeah, I'm calling in from Buda in my messy office. I'm a retiree of St. Edward's University. I don't have all the fancy background. I'm kind of new at this, but I wanted to join in.
Well, we're glad you're here, and your messy has nothing on my house. I'm not showing the real house behind me. You would just see Legos and empty containers where Bagel used to live, and so I'm not even going to go there. Danica, you want to chime in and say where you're calling from?
Sure. I'm calling in from South Austin. I'm with the Institutional Effectiveness and Planning Division at St. Ed's. I'm the Director of Institutional Research.
Great. Thank you. Laura.
Hi. So I teach at St. Edward's in the Department of University Studies, and I'm calling from, I guess, North Shoal Creek.
Okay, thank you. And I think Kim and Hal are at the Soaring Oak, but maybe not.
Well, no, we're actually in South Austin in our backyard. I work for the School of Humanities. And, you know, we're just interested in the topic. And I actually have to admit, I forgot to read the article, but we're here to listen.
That's no problem. It's a lunchtime thing. So I think a lot of people are just, wanting to figure out what's going on. So, yeah. So I'm just going along the row here. Yvonne, you want to say hello?
Sure. My name is Yvonne Dilling. I'm also in San Antonio in the Pax Christi group. And I read the article because I'm very interested in the topic, and I think we're not talking about it enough, and certainly not talking about it enough in the church. And the article is fascinating enough that I wanted to join in this conversation.
Well, we're glad you're here. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I work with the Maryknoll Fathers and Brothers in mission, education, and animation here in San Antonio.
Wow. Okay, so we got a lot of Catholic connections out there. That's great. Josh, you're another one of our Catholic connections. You want to chime in and say hello?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Josh Diney, Assistant Director of Campus Ministry at St. Edward's, and I am in Kyle, Texas.
Terrific. Amanda, you want to say hello? Oh, let me see if I unmute you here.
Oh, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm a Master's of Social Work student at the University of Pittsburgh, and I received the invitation to listen in on this, so I thought I would, and I read the article. It's very fascinating, very relevant for our time right now as a country, and very relevant also to the social work practice that I'm engaged in. So
terrific. Thank you for joining us all the way from Pittsburgh. That's great.
Yeah.
For it.
Mondo still work at the library at St. Edward's. I'm calling from South Austin, and I also read the article, and it's very fascinating, very relevant to our times right now.
Okay, we're glad you're here.
Awesome.
Tim, I see you out there with a white background, so you obviously understand production values.
Doing my very best. I'm Tim Braun. I teach creative writing at St. Edward's University. I think that the topic is really fascinating, especially for the way we approach the psychology of characters in my creative writing classes. And it's just lovely to see everybody here. I might have to leave a little bit early, but that doesn't mean it's no disrespect. I'm just juggling a lot of things today.
No problem. And if you need it, Mr. Authority Figure gives you permission to leave early. So that's totally fine.
Yes, I'm John Dower. I'm here in San Antonio, very much interested. I'm a psychotherapist, and I work with the offering free counseling for the low income and undocumented.
What's wonderful, especially right now, always right now.
Hi, everyone. My name is Avantika. I am a senior at St. Ed's, and I'm studying computer science and political science. I haven't had a chance to read the article completely, but I can also see how it's really relevant right now, as well as so many TikToks now that actually go with it. So I'm really interested in listening to our discussion today.
Great, thanks for being here. Natalie, are you out there?
I am. I feel like this is a radio show. First time caller, long time listener. I'm Natalie Beck. I'm a social work professor here at St. Ed's. So shout out to Amanda, social worker out there. Like she said, I think it's very relevant for social work practice. And I'm eating right now, which is, I don't think y'all want to see. So that's why my mic is off.
Quite, yeah. I may have had the same running clothes on for 3 days, but I'm not going to verify that here when we're recording. Alessandra, are you out there with us?
Yes. Hello, my name is Alessandra Cifuentes. I am from Lima, Peru, in South America, and I am a psychology student here, and I found the topic very relevant to what is happening right now.
Well, thank you, everybody. I'm wonderful to have people from all over the place, St. Ed's and not. I kind of picked the article when I saw it in the Atlantic for the same reasons many of you mentioned your interest was it could be more relevant to our present time and place. I've been working for years and years with the Kettering Foundation in Dayton, Ohio for doing deliberative dialogues, and one of their goals is to improve democracy by improving the number and nature of the voices. And one of the things that we've not been able to do well is get a broad spectrum of people from different walks of life. Turns out it's always the same people who are good at being chatterboxes to begin with. And when I read this article, I thought maybe this is the key. We have a lot of anger in this country, and I don't sure we know what to do with it other than point it at each other in the wrong way. And if you read the article, the Atlantic journalist identifies different kinds of anger, sort of the signaling anger that tells your partner, your neighbor, your loved one, your political leaders where you stand, and it's kind of cathartic, and it sends a message that you need to work on something, and turns out people like hearing it. So there's that kind of anger. There's sort of the moral outrage anger, which the members of Pax Christi and others here, the therapists would probably understand, which is anger that points you towards a direction of social change and social justice. And Cesar Chavez was noted in the article as harnessing the anger and saying, what do we do to make things better with it? So it actually is constructive and productive. And then the article ends with sort of the revenge anger. You're so angry and you don't know what to do and you're trying to be productive with it. And unfortunately you aim it in a way that's sort of hurtful, and then the target wants to hurt you back. And the example they gave was an Oklahoma teacher who started those strikes, which had some momentum and then went places and then got really nasty. At the end of the article, his name is Cagle, the teacher says when they didn't get what they wanted, rather than trying to work with the system or shift the system, they got nasty, like collecting stories of infidelity about their opponents. So it seems to me that, I'm a splitter, not a lumper. 3 kinds of anger. There's a signaling, interpersonal, moral outrage, transformative, and revenge, destructive. Any of those kinds seem like where we're at right now? Are we missing one of them? Do we have too much of another? Whether you read the article or not, you can sort of hang on to one of those types of anger. Where are we at? Are we signaling? Are we transforming and with moral outrage, or are we revenge oriented? So anyone want to jump right in, you can unsilence your mic, and you all have different perspectives. We've got social workers, activists, academics, people that are in IR, event planners, people in other countries. What do y'all think? Don't make me play the Jeopardy music in the background. Anthony, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll start. When I read the first part of the article, what came to mind is that when somebody makes me angry, I just try to, let the steam go off some other place and not in the presence. And then ask myself, well, why did that make me angry? And, what was it about it that I find objectionable? It could be a particular foible or weakness on my own part, or it could be something that was objectively nasty. And I think that's good at that first kind of anger. I'm not sure that translates very well into, say, political anger and stuff like that. A couple of years ago, in fact, it was the last general election. I'm a precinct chair of one of the major parties, and I asked for a set of addresses for people in my own party to get the vote out, and they made a mistake and gave me a list of addresses for the other party. And I didn't look at it. Somebody volunteered to help me, and so she actually addressed the envelopes, and I got hate mail for several weeks. I was accused of being a baby killer and a murderer, and those such things were written on the outside of the envelopes. What I wrote was, never even opened. And so I don't think what's true of that first type of anger applies very well to instances of what you might call political anger or whatever it is out there. That's one thing that struck me about the article.
Oh, I think I agree with that. I think that not every function of anger is suitable for every context, right? And certainly the signaling anger that tells your partner, I'll just use an example with my teenager, that it makes me angry, he leaves his dishes everywhere. And, if I don't express it, I don't signal to him I'm upset about it. And if I do express it, he could be defensive. So maybe I need to signal and then acknowledge, like, well, it makes me angry because we're all trying to get along together. What do you think would be a good way to deal with this? And so, that kind of signaling anger is one thing. The social anger that the article talks about is a lot more complicated, I think, where, and I'll give you people example of that. Somebody on Facebook in my narrow world was saying that she was angry watching people in our neighborhood walk with no masks on, right? And everyone should have a mask. Everybody. I try to stay 20 feet away when I jog with my kid, and I tend not to wear a mask when I run. And then somebody else posted, okay, you're angry about it, but don't be yelling at somebody who's just as scared as you. Maybe we should say to our political leaders, make more masks, or, pass some regulations about it, but they're reminders. In other words, there's sort of the individual signaling level, then there's the society, what we do about it. That's a hard leap, right? That's an extremely tough jump. I don't think we're there now, right? Politically, I think the country's just angry, but it's not moral anger. It seems like it's more like revenge anger. Am I wrong about that from what I'm reading in the paper? People don't want to, they want to take their anger, but they just, it's Shakespearean. They want to stab someone else in the back with it because that's the catharsis they're after.
Well, I see both the moral anger and the strike back revenge anger. And where I see the strike back and revenge anger falls along partisan lines. Let's just get angry at the other guy because they're not thinking the same way that we're thinking. But I do, particularly with the Poor People's Campaign, see moral outrage and anger that is calling out the sins of the society. The fact that we're spending billions of dollars for fossil fuels to bail them out, and the military. And we've had, 4 rounds of stimulus checks that are supposed to uplift the neediest. And they haven't scratched the surface. The neediest that are getting those stimulus checks are then getting a phone call or a message that says, oh, I would like that check, your rent's due, or, this needs paid. So it's not coming, the assistance is not getting where it needs to be. And the fact that we're now looking at a number of states wanting to reopen again, they're not wanting to reopen to help people deal with the isolation and loneliness that we're feeling. They're wanting to open for profit. And that pisses the hell out of me, quite frankly. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I feel the same way. When I was jogging with my kid the other day, the little icy place that was next to the car repair place that's next to the library, the icy place was open. And it had a long line of people without masks. And even though I was 20 feet across the street, I was thinking, what if my 20-month-old inhales some, and I got then I thought, well, I got to go somewhere with that, right? If I'm just going to be angry, I could yell in French because, English or Spanish they're going to get and say, but I thought, well, where should I go with that? Should that go on the neighborhood listserv as a reminder that some people are immunocompromised, or should I be calling Lloyd Doggett's office and saying, or the mayor? I mean, the translation's difficult from the anger that's signaling and revenge oriented to socially productive. And of course, you can't do that by yourself anyway. Are people feeling that now in the country? I mean, Karen put her finger on it when it comes to this sort of sense of solidarity that we had for maybe a week or two when some of those checks were going out, and now, maybe we've lost it. Are we at a turning point? Could we have moral outrage, anger that actually changes the system? I think that's what I hear in Karen's comment. A lot of you are activists and academics, and you're all college educated. Are we at a turning point with our anger? Can we do something with it? I feel like you're all looking at me like I don't know the answer.
I'll chime in on this if you don't mind.
Go.
Yeah. The revenge anger is an aspect that I've been looking at heavily in the past couple of weeks. And just when I work with my playwriting students at St. Ed's, I always stress that no character, no bad guy actually thinks they're the bad guy. That we're seeing Darth Vader doesn't know he's the bad guy. We're just seeing it through the prism of another group. The Joker and Batman, he does not know he's the bad guy. He thinks he's the good guy. But on the flip side too, that there is a certain element, if you look at Othello, Iago believes he's getting revenge, or at least he's justified in his bad behavior. And as we're beginning to open up texts, especially, and what I'm looking at with Georgia, from my perspective, is I always stress with our students that you should have one person on your social media feed who really makes you angry or really frustrates you, so you can see other perspectives as well. I have to admit, I had to walk away from Facebook last night because I was about to let somebody have it, but because he was really all about, we've got to open up. And when I see revenge anger, I often feel as though people, they know perhaps they're, or at least they feel as though they are justified in this behavior. I've been cooped up in my condo with my wife and a 9-month-old kitten for 2 months now, and I deserve the right to go to Arby's. I've earned the right to do this. We're going to open this up, devil may care kind of attitude. And that's what I'm beginning to see. And I think it's very toxic and dangerous, and how we can negotiate those kinds of anger, and how we can communicate to people. How can you take your anger and, I don't know, maybe do some push-ups or focus it someplace else. Where that other place is from person to person, I'm not 100% certain on that. That was one reason I was very interested. I actually stopped my hike today to make sure I got here on time to talk about this. And I'd love to hear what anybody has to say about that.
Could someone follow up on that? When you were talking, Tim, I was thinking one of the people I read in my philosophy law classes was an early critical race theorist and feminist, Alchemy of Race and Rights, Patricia Williams. And she talks about racism and, of course, all the evils that it creates. And one of her expressions is it's spirit killing, right? It's just bad and toxic for society and material conditions. It hurts the soul. And the article didn't talk about that, but we have people who have that language in their back pocket, people here. Mm-hmm. How else is this kind of anger, whether it's revenge or social justice or just signaling, what's it doing to us? I mean, Tim had to go for a hike and get off the Facebook. I didn't cross the street and yell at the icy people. I wanted to. Not very Catholic of me, mea culpa. Fine. Anybody else is? Yeah, Hal. I think I raised your hand, right?
Hi, I didn't introduce myself. I'm the other half of my wife, Kim, here. I'm a 04 St. Ed's alum, and I'm a teacher with the AISD. We had a unique opportunity to listen. We had a loss in our family recently, and so we were listening to a podcast on grief. And one thing that stuck out that I think has some bearing on what we're talking about today is the therapist said that your biggest loss is your biggest loss. And what I mean by that is up until this point, the biggest loss you may have incurred is the death of your dog. And that is horrible. Maybe another person's been a loss of a child or a mother, and that would be horrible. No one gets to say what is more or less horrible. So pertaining to our conversation today, we have a dear friend that lives in a small town near Lockhart, and she is a hairstylist. She is also a single mother, and she's not received her stimulus money yet. So I agree with what's being said about stay home, protect yourself, protect your society. But in the idea that everybody's loss is their biggest loss, she has no money in the bank, no money coming in, single mother, 2 daughters to feed. I can imagine, because I haven't talked to her recently, but I can imagine her desire as a hairstylist is open those salons. I got to make money so I can feed my children. That's not to take away from the fact that others are like, stay at home, don't get a snow cone. What are you thinking? She's thinking, if I can't buy the 99-cent macaroni and cheese, my girls will go hungry tonight to go to bed. So her reality may be different than ours. And I don't think a lot of people are thinking through that anger to somebody else's reality. It's just, well, I'm mad. You have to do what I say because I'm right. Well, you might be right, but she's also right.
No, I think that's right. And it's harder to sympathize with people unless you walked in their shoes, and maybe a lot of us are more fortunate we're not doing that right now. So the anger is easy. The understanding's harder. I mean, I read a New York Times article, many of you probably read it a couple of weeks ago, with some philosophers and theologians about, we're going to have to reopen soon. How do we do it? And whether soon is next week or next month, and I have my own views about that, but fine. Point of fact is, I hate to be crass about it, but I'll try to get past my anger. I'm safe. My partner and I are teaching online. My teenager's taking classes online. The 20-month-old doesn't know. He just wants toys and food. So I'm totally safe. If I had to sell ices for a living, I'd probably be out at the icy stand making money to buy the mac and cheese for my kids. So how do I get past my anger about the risk to, we're all in it together and we got to have some trade-off. And I don't know what that is. For those of you in higher ed, I've read so many articles about if we're open in the fall, 6 feet apart. Well, that might work in a lecture hall, but does it work in a dorm? And hell, if you've got a girlfriend and she's got a roommate, forget it. You're not staying 6 feet apart. Well, the roommate leaves and then, she stays 6 feet apart. So what do we take our anger now, which is about this terrible pandemic and the social collapse that seems imminent and our need for solidarity? How do we get past signaling to social change? And Hal's opened the door. I mean, that's hard. It's one at a time, maybe. People getting past their anger about what they're doing because they got to make a living. And, that involves some risk, a lot more than it used to, I guess, but still. Anyone else want to chime in? Maybe people who aren't St. Ed's people. I see a lot of names I don't recognize. Denise, Arthur, John, Alyssa. It'd be great to have someone who's not in the St. Edward's Hilltop bubble. Well, Hal's not in it, but yeah, he's kind of in it. He's an alum and married to one. So anyone have any thoughts how we take this anger and make it socially productive? Because you got to be angry. If you're not, you're lying. Right? Arthur. Well, let me unmute you here. Dude, you want to introduce yourself to the group?
I'm Arthur Dawes, a member of Pax Christi from San Antonio. A retired social worker, worked primarily with people who were physically disabled, counseled them, visited in their homes, did hospice for 15 years.
Wow, thank you.
The word playbook keeps coming back to me, and also the part in the article that talks about the usefulness of anger as energy. And I think that, and also when I looked at the article, I saw about people who profit off of anger. When I was in graduate school in social work many years ago, a professor said, I'm going to make all of you angry. And we said, oh, sure, yeah, you are. And he did. He actually did. And maybe, I don't know how he did it, but he taught us fear or played on fear, played on something, but he made us angry. And so the anatomy of anger is an issue that I don't know much about. I welcome resources and information on that. What place does anger have in our lives? How can it be used? I know the political part, well, it's being used today with fear and generating anger. Well, okay, do we have a playbook? What direction are we going? What do we really want to achieve? And can we get in line together and align ourselves with our energies? Simple messages, I know, are very powerful if repeated endlessly, continuously. We create reality by simple messages. I mean, look at our president. He creates reality by messages that aren't true, but he repeats them over and over again to the point where people say, oh yeah, I'm familiar with that. And so the point I'm making is, I read about Ann Coulter and the new Jim Crow and about what was planned. And they told us what was planned and they did it. So what are we learning from that? What is our plan and how do we direct our energies? What is the anatomy of anger?
Wow, I wish I could handle even a half of one of those questions. Those are all really, really good. I don't know. And that's not Socratic ignorance. I just don't really know. I'm not playing.
We have resources. We have resources. We have brilliant people. We have resources.
Right. Well, anyone want to take that up? I'm just going to pet my dog here for solace. He's on the bed with me and he's looking like he's had a tough morning, having me home all day. How do you acknowledge the anger and say hello, but then use these resources and our connectedness and our tools? People in this chat room have a lot of tools to not make it just revenge anger. And I'm trying to think myself, I have 4 siblings and one of them's a big Trump supporter. But he's also unemployed and has some mental health challenges. And I want to say to him is he's not getting you a job or healthcare, but that's not going to help. Like that's factually obvious. If I'm Cesar Chavez, I play on the fear and I say, let's make it justice. Let's turn it into something. Arthur asked a lot of questions. How do we transform the anger into something productive? In tiny or big ways. I'm not a social justice warrior. So anybody want to take that up?
In the history of San Antonio, the local Sololinsky tradition people got angry because banks would not put a branch in their neighborhood. So they kept coming into various bank branches and asking to convert $20 bills into pennies, and then they get in the back of the line. When they come up again, they would give the pennies and say, can you give me a $20 bill? And their anger was not, quote, productive. It was like the teacher who said we should all have a sick out. Now, that's not productive, but it's very effective, and it makes other people be productive. When that movement went on to become nasty, they lost their way. But as an opponent of university administrations for decades, I found that very good quite often to make situations untenable for bureaucrats who give other people untenable situations, and to take steps that would destroy the system if allowed to go without some change taking place. So again, what may be true at the individual level, don't let the anger destroy your interiority. But on a public level, sometimes, the most effective strikes have been ones that have been out of control, and employers and governments will start talking to the unions when the unions don't really have control, because they can reinforce them, and people would start paying attention to their union leaders again. So what Chavez did is almost a classic in labor history, where it was getting out of control, and that's precisely when they started to succeed in getting contracts with the grape industry in particular. So a little bit of, quote, unproductive anger could be a useful stratagem now and then, though I would not advocate it for interpersonal relationships.
Right, and I take it that the teachers' strikes in Oklahoma and other states that were sort of spontaneous and social media constructed and tapped into what we all knew but didn't see robustly and concretely, which was that teachers are paying for all their supplies out of their pocket and having 3 jobs. That sort of put it on the agenda, and that was a crazy, unorganized, messy, but productive kind of anger. And who doesn't like a teacher, right? And that's other than Betsy DeVos, everyone thinks teachers are wonderful. So I wonder if we have the social space for that now. I mean, does anyone here think we can harness anger even in sort of crazy, disorganized ways and make it productive outside the relationship context is what Anthony's talking about. Most of my students are registered to vote, but half of them vote. Most of them have never been to a strike or a walkout or a protest. Most of them sign MoveOn.com or protest, movements. And I tell them, look, when I was in college and had friends that worked in Capitol Hill, nobody paid attention to anything on the internet. It was the letter that was written or the phone call that was made that got the attention. And that kind of productive organizing, that takes work, right? And failure. And, maybe we'll see it now because everybody's on the edge. But does anyone here think of that kind of anger can be harnessed in the way Anthony and Arthur are talking about? Do we have a model for that? Laura?
Yeah, I was thinking about that because I personally struggle with what to do with my anger, and I am, I periodically have these little Facebook rants, and then I retreat, and then I get a little rant, and then I'm like, and I'm like, what's the use of that? But lately I did become more active in canvassing in the Democratic primaries, and I found that I was worried that I was going to get more angry somehow, but I actually found it quite joyful and interesting and engaging, and it helped me see a kind of usefulness for that anger. And my struggle now is in this, in this socially distanced environment. I don't quite know how to do that right now. And I'm thinking, like, in the summer, I won't be quite as immersed in teaching. How can I get engaged when a lot of the joy I got was in being around other people, being part of this kind of movement? Can I do something like that in this new context? I don't know. So those are my questions now, is how to do that in this environment.
That's a good point. I don't have the answer to that either. I mean, I wish I had a social psychologist here to say the face-to-face encounters where you canvass to the door and you ask somebody up front, what do you think about gay marriage? People know about that study that was debunked a little bit. And it turns out if the canvasser says, oh, I'm gay and I'd love to get married, that changes your response, because now you're literally face-to-face with millions of years of evolution telling you how to read someone's face. Yes or no, I don't believe in that. I mean, I love doing this kind of conversation and maybe, collective organizing of letter writing, but it just doesn't have the same immediacy. It just doesn't. And I know we're doing it for our health, but there's a trade-off. Can we get political change this way? I don't know. I'm sanguine anyway. Anyone else? Can we do social justice anger in Zoom? That would be a good topic. Anyone want to unmute your mic and weigh in, especially if you're not a St. Ed's person? If not, I'm just going to keep calling on St. Ed's people, because those with the cameras on are giving me the quizzical, like, oh, really? Or don't you see that? So anybody want to chime in? We'll take a pregnant pause.
I'll give a little more of a shot, at least how I try to take my anger and put it into a certain place. Laura brought up Facebook, and we follow each other on Facebook. It's our dean's birthday today. Sharon, it's her birthday because Facebook told me. And the last time I was at Sharon's house, she was talking with me about for a party, and she said, you know, you use humor in a very strategic way. I'm very impressed in the way you craft jokes. And we had a little discussion about what humor is, and a lot of humor is based in anger in one way or another. And I try to be silly. I try to err on the side of making myself the butt of the joke. And an example of this is that it wasn't long ago, not to play my political cards in a Zoom room of mostly people I don't know, but I'm not a big fan of the current president. I call him Lord Wee Mittens on Facebook and Twitter. And he had tweeted, and a guy who studies media, and I teach a cultural studies class that focuses on media. And I read his Twitter feed every day, and then I drink wine. But no, he made a comment about this wall that he wants to build between the United States and Mexico, that it won't always be a big, beautiful wall, as he called it. In some area, there'll be fencing. And I responded and I said, bravo, Lord Weedmans. Fencing is the sport of champions. And I say that if a migrant worker can best our finest swordsmen, they should come to America. And a couple of people who don't line up with me politically sent me messages saying, you know what, it's clear that you and I aren't going to get along as far as some things, but that really made me laugh. And then we had a back and forth, and it may not have been, it was only two people I really played around with, but we started to break the ice to see what we have in common, if you can get someone laughing. And then I also, when I am having a debate of any kind of that matter, look at their, I'm a big sports fan. Try to find commonality first, and then see where you can take your anger from there and say, well, what do we have in common that we can be angry about together? And it may not work in social distancing. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to come to this meeting, see how other people are approaching this as well, but maybe crack a few jokes and see what happens. Might work.
Well, you know, it's funny, Tim, there's a huge literature on laughter and pedagogy. I actually went to the Society of Lighthearted Philosophy Conference in the fall in San Antonio and did a paper on humor in the classroom and can you teach ethics with it? And there were 100 people that were been doing humor forever, and there were 8 different theories of humor, you know, the relief tension version, the social bonding version, the slipping out of banana peel version. I mean, they're like different theories. But the idea is that if you can find something common that isn't destructive about your target to laugh about, that might bring down barriers. So there's a good lid on that. And the article mentioned something comparable as a strategy. It was an Israeli study where a very conservative part of the country was given campaign ads, billboards and other things, which didn't just agree with them about Palestinians being excluded from the political project in Israel, but went over the top with that. Like, why would you agree with them at all? And had soldiers with guns patting kittens saying, you know, Palestinians go home, I mean, all that kind of stuff. And it turns out one of the findings of that study was if you find someone you disagree with, but you agree with them and then some, they begin to see the sort of full scale view of their firmament, right? Their sort of conceptual apparatus. So maybe we can do this online. Can we be strategic about those we disagree with who are angry at us? Whether it's laughter or spelling out, but politely, not in a mean way. And I think the president's a dumpster fire, so I'm right behind you there, Tim. Can we bite our lip and our tongue and cheek or whatever and say, oh yeah, let's look at that, because, you know, maybe there's an idea. Is that worthwhile? I don't know. I'm really going to have to drink a lot to make that work. But anyone think, I mean, we got social workers, we've got people with different family, different political parts of the world. Can laughing with and agreeing with our, I won't say malefactor, our opponent, the one we disagree with, is that helpful? If you could do it, I don't know if I've got the bandwidth for it. Can we do that online? It would mean picking somebody you disagree with, right? And making them a regular part of your yeah, Tim throwing his hands up like, I don't want to do that. I mean, you know, it's, you know, it'd be like talking to my brother about Trump, and I don't even know which of the 15,000 lies I should start with, but maybe I should do something different that takes my anger and tries to find us a common bond. Anyone?
Yeah, I would say at the very least, do it face to face like this on Zoom, not in emails or anything written where they can just take it completely wrong, because that just introduces a whole new set of issues.
Oh, I think that's right, Danica. I think that if I want to be angry on email, I type in all caps and exclamation points and then I walk away. And I come back and they've been seething and boiling, but if I do it face to face, you at least have to encounter me as a subject and not another, right? Because, you know, even looking at a still image from you all, I have to acknowledge the humanity. It's an I thou moment, right? It's the reason my girlfriend calls her pug Boober, is that, you know, it's encountering the other as a real subject. Amanda, you had your hand up.
Yeah, no, I have a lot of thoughts while listening to everyone speak, and it's very hard for me because this has been such a time full of anger, because there are so many people dying from the coronavirus, and yet there's still so much hatred and so much of that othering happening, and so a solution in this time, because it is hard to do the organizing and being around other people, we can't do that. I think Danica's idea of doing like a face-to-face kind of Zoom conversation, if it is with people that you have differing opinions, it's hard. And believe you me, I don't want to listen to someone who says, you know, Trump is a great president, because I don't agree. But I don't know, seeing that humanity, especially in a time like this, because we're still in this together, even when there are people going out and protesting and saying, comparing stay-at-home orders to slavery. It's hard, but I mean, if we're going to get through this and come out on the other side as a still functioning society, we need to somehow have these conversations and create a productive place for the anger. I don't know if that's very idealistic of me. I'm young, you know, so maybe I haven't seen enough of the world, but it's definitely just, there is going to be, you know, a tomorrow, a post stay-at-home order pandemic situation. And as much as we're angry and scared and upset now, we need to be thinking of that future where we have the conversations now to try and build a bridge for the future. So that's just my thoughts all over the place, but yeah.
No, I think that so is the conversation and so is the topic. It's hard to stay focused on what the anger should go, but I agree with you. I mean, when it's over, whatever we look like, Trump voters or not, we're going to be in the same physical space, right? The same icy stand and the same HEB, and we got to figure out a way to talk about that without letting the anger literally, I mean, a lot of these surveys about partisanship now say, it's not that my opponent has a different views, it's that he's evil. Right? Whenever every one of those surveys, it's like, wow, it's not just like I disagree with you with a passion. I think you're evil, like theologically evil. I don't even, that's a huge gap. If I can't look at Arthur, you're nodding.
The article referenced Jerry Springer, Geraldo, and the clownishness of anger. I think there's some potential there. Who is it? All in the Family. I think one of my strategies as a social worker is to tell people who, to work with people who had some self-destructive ideas, carry it further. What then? What happens next? Do you want to do this? Okay, then what? Then what? Then what? Carry it to absurdity, and that can drive it to the center of the two. I think that some role playing and comedy of these silly thoughts that are floating all over the place could generate some interest, as it did with Geraldo, and at the same time put it all out there in terms of all the insanity, and maybe allow some right-wing people to tell us how insane we are, and throw that in. I think that art and playwriting can be very beneficial here, and we can learn to laugh a little bit and maybe get a little bit of relief as to the insanity. Well, then what? You want to do this? Then what do you think's going to happen? And just drive it.
Yeah, that taking it to its logical conclusion was what I think the Israeli study suggested, is that when conservative Israelis saw the logical extension of their views, they were like, oh, gee, I didn't want to go that far. And, you know, sounds like it's good therapy. Sounds like it's good pedagogy, for that matter. And Natalie, I'm going to put you on the spot because you're faculty in that world. Does that ring a bell for what you might teach students or neophytes like me about how to manage the anger?
Oh, geez. Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of thoughts about channeling it, but I think we first need to recognize that we are angry and like the root of it, which I think is what you were getting at, Arthur, like drill down and get to the root of it in order to acknowledge it before we can channel it. So yeah, I mean, I agree with Arthur for sure.
Yeah, okay, so maybe we take it, we acknowledge it, and then the other, I heard Arthur's golden rule there, right? Yes, Arthur, go ahead.
Okay, another one is that I really see parallels in the stages of grief. Anger certainly is a well-known stage of grief that we all know. Denial certainly is, and about saying stupid things that aren't true. Maybe I do, and maybe I need someone that I can trust to tell me what I'm saying. Maybe it could work out that way. But look at the stages of resolution. Anger, denial, depression, and resolution. There's a third stage: anger, denial, depression. Oh, I don't know.
Bargaining.
5 stages. But anyway,
bargaining.
I think they do apply here to what we're going through as a group, and we can work through it.
Good. So I guess I want to ask if those are one of Jenny's dog got in the toddler's room and he's yelling into the monitor. Okay. So what stage are we at now politically when it comes to, or culturally, socially in the pantomime era? Where are we at? Are we
I think we're a little bit
bargaining? Are we bargaining? Are we negotiating? Or I don't know the stages of grief.
Yeah, bargaining was the third one. I think we're kind of like in denial because I don't think we're really focused on what are our, let's say this whole group could come up with 5 points about what we want to happen with national medical structure. What about prison reform? What is our connection? Are we all over the place? Do we as a group just agree on anything? Do we have any strategy, any beginning strategy as to what is the problem? And if not, is there someone who does know, who can at least present 5 options that we can discuss?
I think we had somebody in the chat room. Sorry, Natalie's helping out and she's telling everybody. So shock, I think we're definitely in shock, a month in or more. We're definitely
Those are the stages of grief.
Yeah, I'm going to try to, Natalie, see if I can apply them to where we're at. We're shocked that we're all at home and everything's at a shutdown. We're angry because, well, I can't get my life back and I'm worried about my food and my paycheck and my friends and my health. Are we bargaining now? I mean, I don't know if I'm at depression and acceptance yet. Maybe I'm bargaining like, God, if you just make this style, I'll go to church more often, or I don't know what the right bargaining step is for where we're at. We're
bargaining if we just open up a little bit.
Then what? Then things might go back a little bit more to normal. Is that sort of the trade-off there? Little deadly exposure, but the young are going to be okay by 92-year-old parents. Well, I don't have much hope for them if given their state of health. So we're not at depression yet because bargaining didn't work. What would depression look like where we're at right now? I'm kind of depressed. I got everything going on in my house, so I'm certainly not.
The stages don't have to be incremental like this. People can kind of flow in and out of the stages, the model would say.
Oh, great. Now I got to be angry at that. Super.
We can be immobilized.
Yeah, I kind of feel that's what we're at now. There's some things I can do online, like get Prime delivery boxes to the door, but there's some things I can't, like not seeing real people is starting to get to me, and walking past them on the street in zombie masks is not doing it. But yeah, go ahead, Arthur.
I think that anger also, we need to remember that anger connects with losses and fears. And what have we lost? What are we afraid of? Like, putting words to those demons, I think would help.
Well, I mean, I don't know about you all, but what I'm most afraid of is NOME being a permanent state, that I'm going to be permanently disconnected from anyone who's not in my immediate circle. And the HEB cashiers that I see in my SEAL Team 6 raids once a week to the grocery store are not cutting it for social life. So I'm worried about the social loss of purpose and meaning and connectedness, and that I'm just going to care about my family. And to Laura's point, I won't be social and political online. I just can't do it. And so who does that benefit? Certainly not me or, working class folks. Yeah, I'm worried that the social structure is coming apart. And maybe that's my reason to want us to open up. I know that's probably shouldn't tell that to this group, but shouldn't we open up a little, even a little bit, even if we're in zombie masks all the time?
Jack, in response to that, I think our social networks already collapsed, so to speak, because we were at a point where many of us were so self-absorbed in our own schedule and life, and having the false belief that we had control over our lives. And now we're I think through COVID seeing just how disconnected that we were. And I think it's an opportunity for all of us to go inside, because we're not accustomed to being alone with ourselves. I have young children, and the common mantra that you get into sometimes is, Mom, Dad, I'm bored. and I certainly, when I was young, that was something, that I experienced. We're not comfortable with not doing something. And this pause time might be a good time for us to figure out, how can I get comfortable, or at least a little more comfortable, with unpleasant feelings such as anger, and then ask, okay, I'm angry, I don't like that, that's doing some nasty toxic things to my body. Okay, so I'm gonna try and do some deep breaths and calm my physiological body, and that will help. But then also saying, okay, anger, what are you trying to teach me? You're trying to get me to expand my horizon, my viewpoint somehow, just like there was somebody that when I said that I'm upset that we're opening up, someone, the Livingston group, mentioned very correctly about hairdressers. Absolutely, they have no choice. They need to go out, they need to make a living. Okay. But what bothers me with the governor, for example, okay, he might be mindful of these individuals and trying to help them. But yes, that's debatable. But he didn't say wear a mask. Okay.
Yeah, he's Mike Pence at the Mayo Clinic. Yeah. Yeah. Well, let me suggest this, Karen. I love the way you're ending there, where
can we do both and?
Yeah, the both and. We got to acknowledge that we're angry and we want change, and some people need to get out there. Let me suggest this. I always want to end this on a note of hope, even if we've got 3 minutes left. People in this group will probably know, and I'm going to make an appeal to you in a minute, that when we used to work with the Kettering more often, once or twice a year, we do these dialogues. You get in a room, you talk about gun control or higher ed helping the community or nuclear policy or tax reform. We have a guide that spells out some pro and con trade-offs. And then we would have very civil dialogue at every table and record notes. And when it was over, we would take our least worst answer to that problem, and we would send it to the Lloyd Doggett or local representatives and tell them, we spent an hour, we looked at an issue from lots of perspectives, we pick a least worst option, 30 of your voters want you to know this is what we think, right? And that the Kettering deliberative dialogue model from the National Issue Forum doesn't have that last step. I just added that because I just didn't want us to have a dialogue. And it's not a patented thing, you can do whatever. If I ran a dialogue, and I'm hoping the Kettering people and the National Issue Forum people create an issue guide, should we open it up or not? Should we open up or not? With these kinds of concerns. And we did it online, this is where all the deliberative dialogues are. The Annette Strauss Foundation and UT does them too. If we did a dialogue like that, and we got some people who didn't think like me that dumpster fire was our president, would you all show up electronically, and we could have little breakout rooms where you could have pros and cons. I mean, the way the dialogue works is like pro, people get employed, hairdresser gets a paycheck. Con, somebody could get sick, especially her grandmother. Pro, we're no longer socially isolated. Con, we have to, if we get sick, we're socially isolated once over. So, I mean, you could divide this up and do it. If I did it, and now we have emails, we've captured you, ha, 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 ha. You can't get away from this now. I'll invite you, maybe over the summer, maybe in the fall. Maybe you could show by your icon, your thumbs up icon on the bottom, or if you're on the camera, I got a thumbs up from Hal. I could probably get a couple of the social work folks in. Yep. Okay, well, we're coming up on 1. I know, mindful of people's time. Thank you for this discussion. I didn't know where to go with my anger either, but now I kind of think if we do some version of this and then, you know, pipe the answers or least worst responses off to our representatives, and you can do it where you are, those of you who aren't in Austin, right? Say 30 thoughtful people had a discussion and we want you to know because you're a voter with your finger on the ballot and the budget. So everybody, we will email you all that. Ethicsonthehilltop.org has all our programming. So if you know nothing else from today, ethicsonthehilltop.org, and you can get everything we're doing, whatever program we're offering. And of course, it's now going to be virtual. So stay home, stay safe, and thank you very much for your input. It's always, I always feel a little better about the world when I go to one of these.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.